It has been a little over a year since a Grenadian has been the first female to ascend to the position of Dean of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies Mona campus in Jamaica. Her name is Dr. Heather Ricketts, and this is our conversation.
I am Heather Ricketts, and I am Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences at the University of the West Indies Mona campus in Jamaica.
But you're a Grenadian.
Yes, I am. So,
where are you from, Grenada?
I am from Grenada, born in the mid-60s, born in Grenada, come from St. Paul's. Yes, I was born near to the police station, the roundabout going into Mount Airy. I was born near there. And then eventually moved. I understand when my family moved to Creighton in St. Paul's, I was probably about 2 or 3 months old. So I grew up in Creighton. And St. Paul's, as you know, I would say, a very nurturing community. So I grew up in that village of St. Paul's and worshipped at Bethel Methodist Church.
Okay.
Yes, and Bethel Methodist Church was very much a community church. So we had Sunday school. I was very much involved in Sunday school. And children came from different denominations to our Sunday school. And it was a very nurturing environment. I think I was nurtured by not just my parents, but that community that was Bethel. And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was Roman Catholic, and she worshipped at Roxborough. And I had other, aunts in the family who were Roman Catholic and worshipped at Roxborough. So you got that sort of nurturing by Roxborough and also Bethel Methodist Church,
You say you're from St. Paul's. Did you play pan, Chero's girl?
No, I didn't play pan, but Chero's, I'm a family because that Robinson surname is associated with common Chero's. At the time, I suppose, what should I say about at that time? Steel band, I don't think it had infiltrated into some of us, the younger ones and so on. But nevertheless, you were kind of proud supporter on the sidelines.
Would you say it also had to do because you were female?
It could be. I would say maybe, because you've seen steel band. I mean, more women have been playing pan, certainly since I was a child, and if you take it from the Trinidad side, the way the steel band evolved was more among working class people. Girls and people of a particular class were not supposed to be associated. That was our experience in Grenada so much. Maybe I could be wrong, but you're right. That maybe because I was female, I wasn't so much engaged. But my brothers were not. My younger brother, however, when we went to live in Trinidad, he was a young teenager when we went. He was about 13. And so he fell into the pan, steel band playing, and he fortunately learned to play steel band and actually played when we lived in Trinidad. But yes, so I'm St. Paul's and I went to Anglican. So I started off first at Miss Baptiste. I would say, what would that be? Early childhood school on Lucas Street. And then we went to the Methodist primary school. I started off in the primary school on Lucas Street, where the church is and where the church office is. That was where the primary school was.
Okay.
And we moved to the park where I think Wesley College is now.
And St. George's Methodist is there now.
St. George's Methodist, yes, where Wesley College is now. I think that was where we, the Methodist primary school, St. George's Methodist Primary, went. But because that river, is the St. John's River?
Yeah.
There were so many floods. It would flood its banks, overflow its banks. I would say kind of frequently when we had heavy rain.
It hasn't changed.
So my mother was very concerned about that, Okay. Yes, so we moved from from the park and went to Heinze.
Okay.
So that's where I think I went to Heinze when I was in stage 3, which would not be like pre-grade 1 or standard 1, pre-standard 1. So
Okay.
yes, so I started off there and then ended, in standard 5 and then went on to Anglican High School.
Okay.
School where I finished 5th form and then went to Trinidad and completed high school there and then went to university, did my first degree at St. Augustine, and then came to Mona for graduate school. And I got married and stayed in Jamaica and continued, worked and then continued and went on to do a PhD.
Wow.
So it's in a nutshell.
So you talk about your brothers. Any family in Grenada still?
Yes,
Anybody?
my older brother Randall Robinson, who is a
Oh,
member
okay.
of the
Okay.
NDC.
Yes.
Yes, that's my older brother.
Okay. All
Yes.
right.
And the younger one, Alan, lives in the Cayman Islands.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Your
Yes.
parents are still alive?
Yeah, both of them. Daddy is 91 and my mother is 86. They're not
So
keeping
shout out to
best-
your parents just in case they get to
Yes,
watch this.
So mommy retired pretty early. I would say she took early retirement. But daddy worked up to maybe about age 88 or 89. So he was deputy chair of the Integrity Commission, Robert Robinson.
Okay.
So
I know the name.
Yes, so that's daddy.
So how many months has it been since you've taken up that seat in the social sciences department, the first female there at Mona campus?
So I became dean on the 1st of August, 2022. So it's a little over a year, maybe about 14 months, August, September, October, 15 months, since I am, well, not quite 15 months, but almost, since I have been dean of the faculty. It's the largest faculty at Mona. We teach about 40% of the Mona enrollment, and the enrollment can run anywhere between 17 and 20,000 students. And we teach in the faculty about 40% of that. So it's a huge faculty, many departments. So in the faculty, you'd find the departments of economics, government, sociology, psychology, and social work. The Mona School of Business and Management. And then we have the SALISES, the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies. The Mona branch is located in the faculty. And also the Center for Disability Studies is also located in the Faculty of Social Sciences.
Wow. So you're dean of a lot of different departments.
Yes, many departments. Yes.
What does it mean to you to ascend to that position as a female, the first female?
Well, I have to tell you, to be honest, I never saw it as anything. But then I recognized I had to sort of, what should I say, shape up myself sort of, because I recognized how important it was for other women and for particularly my younger female colleagues, how important my representation as the first female dean is to them. I just took it as, well, okay, you've been asked to serve in this capacity, so, you just go on and do it. It's all part of university service. So it's with a lot of humility. I have not at all allowed it to cloud my judgment or for me to get ahead of myself. That's not generally my personality. Wherever I am asked to serve, I give it my best. I do the best that I can. And that's, how I have treated it. But I do, as I tell you, I did realize how very important and significant and historic others have seen it. And in fact, we've had students who have come into the faculty office. So when you get into the faculty office, there is this passageway with the photographs of all the deans. And, we had students over the years say, not a female, no female dean. So when I became the first female dean, there were students who celebrated. They were happy to see my face among the numbers of men, the photographs of my predecessors who were all male or who are all male. Yes.
So it's been less than 15 months, you say. What was your first mode of business when you got in there? What was your focus when you got in?
When you start, so the academic year runs from August 1 to July 31. So anybody who takes up any office on August 1 is staring the new academic year in the face. So you are staring, having to welcome new students into the faculty. You are having to prepare a number of things. So the message for both the undergraduate and the graduate handbooks, the delivery of, the messages to the various orientation and welcome ceremonies for undergraduate and graduate students, and the academic presiding over the academic advising and so on. So there is no time to sit down or, you just have to get rolling with those activities. And also in my faculty, we have something called a faculty day. It's I would say a kind of retreat. So we spend a morning, well, it's now called Vision Morning. We spend a morning thinking about what the vision for the academic year should be. And whomever the dean is sort of sets that vision and sells it to the faculty for buy-in. So I had to be, from the time I knew that I was going to be dean, I had to start thinking about what that needed to look like. And it coincided with us returning to face-to-face after the pandemic. So, it was return, I think it was, what was it? Return, re-engage, and it was 3 hours. I'm not remembering the third hour, but it was just returning, re-engaging, and I can't remember the third hour, but it was a 3 hour, theme that I had going. We were returning after face-to-face. We were re-engaging with each other and re-engaging with the university and with students, many of whom we were having final years who were pretty much first years because they probably just had one semester of being one solid semester and a few weeks into the second semester of being face-to-face. And everything else was now online, So we had to re-engage with the community, I would say, the academic community of students and colleagues and the administrators, etc., etc.
Wow.
So I had to have that vision going, sell it to the faculty. They bought into it, and we organized how we were going to operationalize and to execute it, and so on. Yes.
What's about this new year?
So this new year, what I've focused on is on academic integrity, not just from the student side, but from the lecturer side and the administrator side. So ensuring that we are true to our students, that we do good by them. We ensure that we grade their work on time and we are fair in all the things that we do, that there is integrity in all of our practices, and that our examinations processes are efficient, and that the governance structure guiding and undergirding the examinations processes that structure, that governance structure is watertight and airtight, So that's really what we are focusing on this year. And it's so interesting because the new principal has 4 strategic priorities for this academic year.
Mm-hmm.
One, they are employee engagement, student success, thought leadership, and business and financial processes re-engineering.
Okay.
So from the time I heard his vision, and this was subsequent to, my own, vision about, about academic integrity, certainly from our side as academics, to do good by our students and to ensure that we are true to them. If they write us an email, we answer it quickly. We don't have them strung out for long waiting on responses or giving incorrect response. So, for example, I said to the administrators and also to the academic colleagues, you have to know the university's regulations to be able to guide and to interpret these regulations accurately and not cause any undue distress. So when I heard the principal speak about what he sees as student success, a lot of what we had already said for our faculty, was repeated in what I heard.
So you were in sync with the new principal's thrust.
We definitely were in sync. Are in sync with the new principal. Yes.
Great. I'm listening to you speak here, and you spoke about moving from the Methodist to Heinz to Anglican High, then to Trinidad, and now here. What was it that, if you don't mind me calling you Heather, Dr.
Oh, sure, please.
Dr. Ricketts.
I don't stand on ceremony at all. So, yeah, sure, please.
What did little Heather want to be when little Heather was a little girl?
I think at one point I know I wanted to do law. I thought I wanted to do law. In fact, when I was finished with my first degree, I applied to this. In those days, you did law only at Cave Hill. Well, certainly the LLB.
Mm-hmm.
These days, you can do the LLB on any of the campuses. But you went to Cave Hill to do the LLB, and I had applied after my first degree and I'd got in. But I had also applied to the Consortium Graduate School of Social Sciences, which is now Salises.
Mm-hmm.
I had applied there because 2 of my lecturers at St. Augustine, Professor Lloyd Brathwaite,
mm-hmm.
that eminent Caribbean sociologist who we refer to as the father of Caribbean sociology, he taught me, Lloyd Brathwaite, and Dr. Roy Thomas, who also taught me. He taught me economics. I had done a degree in sociology. And in fact, Roy Thomas was laid to rest maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I always, thought of Dr. Thomas, wondered, if he was still alive. And I have very fond memories of him because he was a very kind and nurturing lecturer to those of us who were first-year students. So both Dr. Thomas and Lloyd Brathwaite had come up to Mona for university meetings, and they brought back the application form for me to apply to the Consortium Graduate School to come to do graduate work. This would have been the Masters in Social Sciences.
Why? Were you excelling? What, did you stand out? Why?
I think I was a good student. And I enjoyed a very, very good relationship with Lloyd Brathwaite. In those days, again, as a first-year student, he was my tutor, my sociology tutor. And in those days, tutorials were very small. So there were no more than 12 students. And myself and a girl called Geeta Maraj, we were the only 2 females in that tutorial. And Lloyd Brathwaite was given to making rude jokes. He would crack a lot of rude jokes and so on, and I don't know if it's the Grenadian kind of revolutionary spirit in me. I would ask him what those things had to do with the tutorial question, for example, that we were supposed to be answering. And I would try to get back the tutorial session into some, order. So he would tease me and say, "Oh, okay, Comrade Robinson, okay," because I was, come from Grenada, and it was
From the
after the
revolution and
revolution.
everything.
Okay, Comrade Robinson, folks, we have to get back to the tutorial question, because
So you
Comrade
kept
Robinson
the class
asking.
focused.
I tried to keep the class focused, and then, I would debate with Professor Lloyd Brathwaite, and he and I became very good friends. Even when I came up to Mona to do graduate work, it was my hope that after finishing the master's, I would have gone back to work with Professor Lloyd Brathwaite, maybe as his research assistant and so on. He was also very good to me because a lot of the early readings which we were required to do prior to coming into the graduate program, he had those books. He lent me so that I could photocopy them, and so on. So I have a lot of fond memories, and I hold Professor Lloyd Brathwaite and Dr. Roy Thomas very dearly. So yes, so it's a long beat about answer, but yes, I wanted to do law, but I didn't have the best A-level results, to get into these programs. So I went. In fact, when I was in sixth form in Trinidad at Holy Name Convent, that's where I did my sixth form, A-levels. My history teacher, I'm trying to remember his name. He recommended that I do sociology. Whatever he saw of me, maybe my interactions in class or whatever, made him think that I was cut out to be a sociologist. Mr. Green, he was, Mr. Green.
What you say your interactions in class? What are the qualities you would say one would need to be a sociologist?
I think maybe a certain care about structure of society and how things such as your class, your race, your ethnicity, your location in life, how these things impact on your outcomes. And, so, I came from Grenada, and I grew up at a time, as I tell you, I born in 1965. And so when the revolution took place, I had just turned 14. So I came into my teenage years, into my adolescence and youth at the time of the revolution, which was a very consciousness raising period. So we learned about ourselves as Caribbean people, trying to forge an identity, and our location within a world that was not necessarily fair and just and equal, and prior to that, I would have I came through a period of violence, political violence in Grenada.
Yes.
Years,
Yes, I remember reading about that.
Yes, you are a youngster compared to me. So yeah, you would have read about it, but I lived some, and so maybe it is, maybe whatever I shared, perhaps the lenses from which I thought about things, or, he saw sociology. And he recommended that I purchase this book called Contemporary Sociological Theorizing for the Caribbean. I think that's what contemporary theorizing, sociological theorizing. I think I'm rusty on the name, but it was edited by Susan Craig, who eventually taught me. She taught me in my second year. Did she teach me in my third year? She may have taught me too in my final year, but she certainly taught me in my second year. But she edited that collection. And
you've passed through a few hands, Dr. Lloyd Brathwaite, Mr. Thomas,
Susan Craig, Ramesh Diosaran taught me psychology. Acton Kameho taught me industrial sociology. I had good lecturers, I think I had good lecturers throughout. I had a good foundation in Grenada. We did struggle at points in Grenada to get the best teachers, given what was happening at the time. Looking back as I got older, I realized that, we had migration. People were leaving. During the Gary years, people were leaving. During the NGM PRG years, people were also leaving, So sometimes we struggle to retain the best teachers. And so for some of us, some of us, I guess, struggled, on account of it. I didn't do well at my first stab at GCO levels,
Okay.
and I think it was just what was happening at the time and what was happening to my own father, and that led us into Trinidad. But once I got there, I had more of a secure and safe environment. I settled down and did well and started doing well again. And I did well on my second try and my A levels. I did fairly well there, and then went on to university and just continued doing even better and so on.
You talk about something that happened to your father. Do you mind?
Well, my father at the time, so my father was president of the Civil Service Association.
Okay.
And I would say he came under attack.
I assume that, but as a journalist, you don't assume, you ask.
Right, by the PRG, he was demoted. He was labor commissioner at the time. He was demoted to become roadworks officer, and this was largely because of the position that he held as the president of the Civil Service Association, bargaining for the civil service, civil servants for higher wages and so on.
Okay.
And so, it took a toll on our mother. And my mother is Trinidadian, by the way. So,
okay.
So mommy left with us, the children, and then daddy joined us the year later. So, all the things that were happening to him, it was clear that it was having an impact on me. Because, as I got older and understood what post-traumatic stress disorder is,
yes,
realized that that's what I was experiencing. I would have the same I would have the same dream almost every night where we were captured. I would have a nightmare. And this is what, and I sort of realized, as I got older that, that's what was happening to me. And it explains why I did not do my best at my first go at GCO levels.
Interesting.
Yes. But so we ended up in Trinidad, and then when things settled down, my parents returned to Grenada in 1990. But by then I had come to Mona. Came in 1988 to do graduate work, and then the rest is history, so to speak.
Let's look at our Caribbean. And I'm thinking the reason why I'm going there is paradise. We're marketing as paradise, but paradise has problems. And crime has skyrocketed, especially in areas where, it wasn't a big problem before. What do you think is responsible for this? What can governments do? What can civil society do? What do you suggest?
Well, you are correct that the incivilities are many today. Crime is one of them. Crime and violence and general antisocial behavior. Because I saw some news item in Grenada of somebody in a school uniform pretty much fighting with a police officer. Sometime, I think it was last year or so. And I was like, Grenada, I mean, I'm not one to disbelieve that these things can happen in small places such as Grenada, but still it shocked me, But I would say family life has broken down. family, there's a crisis there. There's a crisis of the family. How shall I? And a crisis, I would say, of community as well. So I told you that I grew up in this, what I considered a nice community of St. Paul's. I think people looked out for each other. I don't think people were predators to prey on children. Or so.
Yes.
People looked out for you. Other people looked out for you, and so on, and had expectations of you that you also tried to live up to. Some of us might have stumbled, but we got up, we brushed ourselves off, and we tried again, because the community had certain expectations. The community knew you. My children, when they were smaller, and they would go to Grenada and they would take the bus. They used to like the fact of taking the bus from Creighton into St. George's and walk up and down and then take the bus back. And people would know that they belong to the Robinsons in Creighton. Even before they even say, stop, bus stop. The bus would stop, because the bus would know that, they belong here and so on. That has faded. And there's been a lot of migration out, so communities don't look the same way that they did. A lot of the economies are unable to absorb the labor. And so you have had high levels of unemployment. And once you have high levels of unemployment, or even high levels of underemployment, you're going to have living standards affected. And we have seen that for a long time. So when you have situations like that, poverty, you then start to see poverty, and poverty breeds other kinds of things. So there is a young girl in a poor household. She has particular needs. The household can't satisfy the needs. Somebody out there is providing some of those needs and might take advantage. The next thing she knows, she's pregnant. And that poverty spiral, just continues, and it spirals out of control. Fathers who are not necessarily pulling their weight. They're not present to pull their weight. And some of them, even if they are present, they're just not pulling their weight, And so the kind of socialization and nurturing that you expect parents, fathers to play, you're not seeing in some places. And so mothers are overburdened. They're trying to be provider and protector at the same time. And where you have that, then the time that the mother has to engage in some of those other things, to nurture and to socialize and so on, the time is just not there. And she doesn't have the support of that village that some of us grew up in as we were younger. So it is a number of things going on at the same time. Well, I lived at a time where we didn't even know what social media was. We couldn't even envision what social media was. There was no cable, there was no internet. And I'm saying that these other sources of socialization are very powerful.
Yes.
They're very powerful, and they are having their impact too. And some of us parents, because I would say these things are outside of our generation, we haven't taken the time to learn them and to understand how much of a threat they can be, in the same way that they can be a help and an advantage. They also come with their fair share of challenges.
As you bring up the use of social media, the internet, I jumped to another question that I had for you. Now, recently in Grenada, I don't know if it's happening elsewhere, I can focus on Grenada. There has been a spate of teenaged people making videos of themselves in sexual activities and then sharing it on social media.
Yeah, it's happening.
And the ramifications for them, it's huge.
Yeah.
Well, we think so. I don't know if it will change by the time they are adults, and then looking back, they're like, oh, I made a video when I was 13, and oh, you did it, I did it too. So I don't know if things will change like that. But from what we're seeing now, we see it as a problem for them in the future, especially the females.
Yeah.
But it's like they're not listening. It's not getting to them.
There's a lot of peer pressure. Listen, young people today are under a lot of peer pressure, you know. You're almost sorry for them. And I don't think the response must be to castigate. I think it has to be to teach and to train and to nurture. They're under a lot of pressure to do a lot of things. When you have the family in crisis, as I think it is today, where parents are trying to eke out an existence in a lot of homes, right?
Yep.
And fathers are not necessarily pulling the weight that they are expected to pull because they're not able to be the providers. You know, women still look to men to be providers, irrespective of whether they have the resources. Men still have that, there's still that view of men. And if men are unable to provide, they themselves will tend to stay away because they get a lot of flack for it, not being able to provide. So sometimes it's not even, sometimes the only thing that they could bring to the table is to be a good father in the sense of I can nurture my son or daughter well. But the mother of the child or children doesn't have that kind of sympathy for him. Or
that, you know, as you're talking there, I read something they shared on Facebook, and it went something a little like this, where the man was a janitor. When he met her, she was a teacher, and he was a janitor at the school, and she became superintendent. And he had a problem. He loved her, but he had a problem with her having that position. But she broke it down to him that this is who we are as a couple. All right. And he understood his role. She didn't break him down. She didn't make him feel less than, which is something a lot of women would have to learn to do. And he pulled the weight whereby when she had to travel all over, he was there for the family. He was there for the children. And further on, she pushed him. She didn't push him, but he took it upon himself to further his education because of her. Do you think this is what is going to be happening more of if us as women try to be more understanding?
Well, if we try to be more understanding, hopefully that will be the result, you know? Because, I mean, a partnership, you know, a marriage or a partnership, you know, you really are each other's helpmate, you know, helpmate. You really should be helping each other. That's what a marriage and a partnership that is a love partnership is supposed to do. Quite apart from, yes, producing children, some couples, unfortunately, can't have children. Some will adopt, some will not adopt. But really it's to help each other, to balance each other. And really what a relationship ought to stand on is respect and ambition.
You put in the big R word there.
I think if you have respect and ambition, you will get far as a couple, irrespective of where you start. If you have respect for each other and the two of you have ambition, you will work with each other and you will get somewhere. So that was a beautiful love story.
Yes, you know? I always go back to it, and anytime I find it, there's something in my heart that flutters.
Yes, that's a nice love story, but I think that is 1 in a million.
Yes.
Because what happens is a lot of women still expect men to be the provider. If he can't be the provider, don't bother. sometimes he can be the provider, but he could really be a good father in the sense that he's a good nurturer. You know, maybe he has good values that he could impart to his children. But, you know, they would run him away, you know, and
so then it means
deadbeat.
So then it means there has to be somewhat of a paradigm shift.
Yes, I think there has to be, you know, I mean, there has to be a paradigm shift. Listen, this economy, this world is a different world now, eh?
Yes,
There's no guarantees.
And we are living with a patriarchal society from how many hundreds of years that no longer fits what is going on.
Yes, because I think we are outgrowing that you know, that framework.
Yeah.
And so we are going to have some novel and interesting dimensions to life going forward. Not a lot of people are going to get employment. They are going to have to make their employment. They're going to have to find their place in the labor market. And those securities that people would have had, like a pension, yes, and health insurance, and sick leave with pay. Some of these jobs these days are not coming with these assurances.
No. And I think, you know, and that too. So we talk about the family, which the structure is changing. We're looking at the economic situation, the work situation, where people are still stuck and they expect the job to pay them pension. If the job can, fine. And if the job chooses to, that's the operative word, fine. But it's been a while now I've been paying attention. Like since in the late 90s, I heard some talking heads on TV talking about the world is changing. No longer is your father going to be in a job that he took care of the job and the job takes care of him. You have to take care of yourself. And that mentality is slowly creeping into our society. Well, and we're fighting it.
I saw the NIS in Grenada, I believe it very recently. A lot of public advertising around what you'd call them now, small business people, you know,
yes.
People who create their work themselves, you know, asking them to contribute to the NIS, and they are going to have to. You know, people view this contributing to the NIS almost as if it is a tax. It is not a tax. It is an investment in your older years.
Yeah.
So those who don't want to set aside money, you know, to put down for old age and so on, they are going to be in problems. They are going to be in a lot of problems. But the state also has to think through how it is going to provide social security, social protection for its citizens. This is something that is critical. Listen, people are living longer. We're going to have people living longer. People are going to be living 20, 25, 30 years beyond their retirement. And they are going to have to live at the level at which the society is operating. So the pension is going to be one thing, but maybe inflation is likely to eat into it. So people are going to have to make arrangements for older years. And one of the arrangements they can make now is to put aside something in the NIS for your pension later down the road. It may not be able to cover everything, but it will be able to cover some things. And then financial literacy has to be a big part of
you are speaking training. A book, because it is something that we need to take into consideration. Many people are still doing the susu, and when they do get the hand gone,
well, they have to put aside part of that hand into something.
Yeah.
You know, we have to be re-educating the population. It is not going to be easy. Life ahead, we are living longer. We are going to need more resources to be able to live longer, more comfortably. And then there are all the morbidity issues. We don't know where life will take us, what kinds of ailments we're going to come down with as we get older. Right? And it's taking a lot of money. Our health needs are going to be a big part of our pensions.
You talk about health needs, and I was having a conversation recently with someone, and of course, our culture, what we eat, falls under sociology, and the fact that we are so attached to how to our food, but we no longer live the lifestyle that food would have given the energy to. When I say that, many of us sit at a desk. But we eat like our grandparents who work the land. So we eat in the rice, we eat in the yam, we eat in the everything.
All the provision with
all rice the starch. All the starch.
And don't mention the sweet tooth that we all grew up with. Fudge and
sugar cake.
I have it. I love a good guava cheese, I suppose, is the thing that's my vice.
Okay.
Every time I have had to, what should I say, behave myself when I come home. So whereas I would buy the big bag of guava cheese to take back, I take back the little one.
And you chinks it?
Yes, and eat it because, but I grew up with that too.
Yes.
Jam, sugar cake, fudge, guava cheese.
Yes? And and then many of us don't burn it out the way we should.
Oh, we're not. As you say, we are very sedentary. A lot of us are very sedentary. The jobs that we are doing, very sedentary. And we're eating the same amounts as you said, our grandparents who worked in the garden.
Yeah, and they burnt it out. Yeah.
Then remember again, because of social media and internet and so on and modernization, they're into these fast foods in a big way. So
the fried chicken and fries.
The chicken and pizza. Fries and the pizzas and the
burgers.
And the burgers and so on,
And we're not gravitating towards what the nutritionists and so on are telling us will help us. Lots of greens and lots of vegetables. We don't want to hear that because what I realize is that we have a connection to the breadfruit. We have a connection to the green banana. We have a connection to the yam. But all these greens, to us is just grass.
Yes, it's grass. I didn't appreciate the value of a salad until I got much, much, much older, But things are changing, yes. Men and women are being exposed to things much earlier. And so some of them are maturing earlier as well. And some of these hang-ups that, some of us grew up with where the man couldn't be younger than he had to be older than you. As I tell you, those hang-ups are fading. I think importantly, I would say, and this is not me, opening the door to you doing any and everything, but I think if respect and ambition are at the center of a relationship, it can work.
I like how you put those two words, respect and ambition.
You have to have ambition.
Yes. Excellent.
You can't be prepared
Excellent.
to just stay where you are and you're not doing anything to improve yourself. And you must be improving
Excellent.
yourself. And you must have respect so that the relationship is not going to be one where you feel like you could just walk and lord it over the other person. Or be violent, and abusive and disrespectful. That's not what a relationship is about. Two people ought to be helpmates, and then these days relationships are not just heterosexual.
No.
We are seeing increasingly same-sex relationships.
Yes.
Different expressions of sexuality and so on. Yes, the church has a particular view and so on, but at the end of the day, I would say that these individuals are citizens of a country entitled to the same rights as everybody else who is not, same-sex or not, homosexual and so on. And so I think we have to be able to balance how we view individuals who walk a different road from us. It cannot be that you are going to be disrespectful and violent and so on. I think we have to be careful.
I think what I'm gaining from this conversation with you is that there has to be, and it already has started, the paradigm shift, the change in how everything that we were brought up to think and to do, but at the center of it, respect and ambition.
Yes. Respect and ambition. I don't think you can go wrong with those two things. At the end of the day, that's really what you want.
Anything else you want to add?
You mean in terms of relationships?
In general, about
generally about,
because we have touched on all the questions that I had.
Okay.
So I'm leaving it open to you now, because the issue of homosexuality is that our islands, and especially the smaller ones, very homophobic. I don't know if you experienced it, but
yes, Jamaica, big homophobic, big. I mean, but remember, that heterosexuality is the norm still.
Yes.
Change is not generally easy. And change such as that kind of change where one is being asked to not to accept necessarily, but to tolerate and to be respectful of difference. These things are not necessarily easy things for people to adopt or adapt to. And so it will take time. And I think we have to be patient with each other. Remember that we are small societies. We haven't been exposed to a lot of things.
The internet is exposing us to a lot now.
A lot of us have not traveled out of the spaces that we have been in to see other cultures and societies. We are religious societies as well, where marriage and relationships were between, or are expected to be between, a man and a woman. The reproduction and the sustaining of society require a man and a woman, procreation, man and woman, for same-sex persons to be able to reproduce requires all kinds of other things, adoption and different things and so on. So naturally, it is man and woman who produce children, naturally, and so on. So when a lot of people have a problem with homosexuality and same-sex relationships, you have to understand where they're coming from.
Yes, exactly.
And the same-sex community also has to understand where they are coming from. So it has to be a give and take
There has to be a lot of understanding and
lot
respect.
of understanding and
Respect on
respect.
both sides.
A lot of understanding and respect back and forth.
Yes.
It can't be that people just all of a sudden wake up tomorrow and you're expected to be accepting. It's not going to happen.
You know, one of the things I look at, for example, when you're getting on a bus here in the front of the bus, I don't know if you've experienced this in Grenada. If a man is sitting there and a woman comes in on the bus, he gets out for her to sit in the little middle seat in the front because two men are not supposed to sit down together. The man is a driver, a man and a man. And I'm like, seriously? In 2023? So anytime I want to get on a bus to go in the front and a man is there and he gets out for me too, I'm like, I'll go in the back. Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay.
Because it comes from homophobia. Some of them might tell you their foot is too long and it's hitting this or whatever. But I'm like, I'm tall too. My legs are hitting that too. But I've heard them say, two men are supposed to sit down together in a bus. Mm-hmm. But in the back of the bus, you have men sitting jamming each other. So I'm like, it doesn't add up.
And you know, I'm listening to you and I am not disagreeing. But I'm just thinking, I never paid attention to it, you know, before. But I'm just thinking, you know, the way, I suppose it's my generation now talking. A woman coming into the bus and being put to or asked to sit in the middle would be seen as a man wanting to protect her. I think it's coming from that as well. It's a protector, you know, vibe that they're also giving off.
That would have worked back then.
Yes, so I'm saying back then it would have been, if that happened back then, it would have been seen from that point of view.
Yeah, and I see where you're coming from.
Point of view.
Where
you are coming from.
Because I've heard them say, me sitting down with two men sitting down there. You come in, you have to sit down there. And it's like, then they would say it's a sandwich. The man and the lady in the middle is the meat. And I'm like, like, seriously?
Yes.
So I look at all of those things, and it might be simple things in our society, but you see the infiltration, where it is, how deep it is.
Yes.
How very deep it is. And as you rightfully say, we wouldn't wake up tomorrow morning and just expect things to change.
It can't change though. It probably will take a whole generation to change. It can't change in 10 years. You know, either. So maybe 30 years, you're going to see some kind of shifting taking place. In fact, young people, my own children's generation, the generation of my children, my older child is 30 and my younger one is 25. They are nowhere as homophobic as my generation. I'm not
definitely.
saying I don't think that I'm homophobic. I'm very respectful. I know this is you know, this is a road you have, you know, you are walking, I'm walking a different road, but I have respect. I always try to be respectful, right? But my generation, I suspect your generation, younger, you know, the generation below me, y'all are less concerned about the things that my generation would make a big deal over. Right? So it is taking a generation to change things. It wouldn't happen overnight, but certainly, you know, 20 years, 30 years.
You know, as you talk about that there, I remember a psychiatrist was talking about changing the thoughts of how people treat people with mental health disorders. And he said the same thing. It would not happen in 10 years. It would not happen in 20 years. You know? It has to take about 30 odd years.
And your generation is going to be far kinder to people who have mental health challenges than my generation. Yes? And I'm already seeing it. That, you know, people are very concerned about mental health issues. Your generation in particular, you know, very sensitive to it. And you're hearing young people, certainly in my space, you know, bolder to talk about having to seek counseling help, psychological or, you know, help.
But back in the day when you heard that, you were like,
Hey, crazy people, they label you
Yes.
mad.
Yeah.
And the words they use, mad, crazy,
Lunatics and stuff like
lunatic,
that.
and it's like you can't come back from anywhere. Once you've gone down that road, not you it's like you can't function. People are functioning today with medication. I heard a young man who is bipolar say that in the same way that somebody is diabetic and has to take their diabetes medication, he treats his bipolarism in that way. He say, okay, he suffers from this illness, just like the diabetic or the hypertensive person. He has to take this medication to be able to function, and he just functions. Sometimes, he goes into a what you call a manic or depressive state and so on, and he has to be hospitalized. Well, just like the diabetic or the hypertensive person, they sometimes have to be hospitalized. You go in there, you get your treatment, you come out, and so on. So we have to get to a place where we see mental illness in certainly the mental, if you're not really very seriously ill that requires you to be institutionalized, and you really can't, I would say, function well for lengthy periods. But you asked me what else I wanted to say. Maybe the thing that I want to say, and maybe because I'm a sociologist, I've done work in this area, is how important parenting is. We have to get back to there. Parents have to understand their roles and their responsibilities to their children. I think we are not as attentive to our roles and responsibilities to our children as our foreparents were, who understood the role. It is not, you might think you have the little dolly, but the dolly grows up. The dolly grows up.
And I like how you put it, a dolly.
Yeah, because it's a dolly, then they're posting the pictures because everything now is on social media. So they have the gender reveal party, and then you have all the pictures of the baby and everything. Beyond those things, parenting requires work. It is work. And as the children get older, the work continues. You can't say that you stop parenting. I've come to realize that you parent until you close your eyes from this world, right? Because the hopes and the dreams and the fears and the aspirations and so on change over time. Your children become adults. So the relationship between you and the child changes as the children grow up. And so parents really have to play their role. And it requires them to play a big part of the role is school, interacting with the school, because the child has to go to school. So you have to be there. You have to go to the parent-teacher association meetings, try and be there, help with homework. Even if you can't help, you try and get help. Encourage the child, encourage. I hear some parents talk to the children in some very disrespectful ways.
Yes.
Call them anything.
Yes.
No respect. Loud them out in public, whereas not discreetly, And this thing about corporal punishment and the beating, I think those days are over. I mean, we have to find ways of disciplining children, that the different ways of disciplining children. This business about pulling belt and getting piece of wood and whip, and those days are, they're so archaic. That's my generation. That's not supposed to be happening to me today. We have to find a different way. But at the same time, parents can't be permissive. Your child is not your friend. Is your friend, yes, but it's not, if you understand what I mean.
I understand.
We're not looking, this is not an admiration society, a mutual admiration society.
But you see, one of the things is that a lot of the parents haven't grown up yet.
Well, this is the problem too.
They're still competing with their teenage daughters.
That is a big problem.
To look a certain way.
Yes, I like what you are saying. Absolutely, competing with the children. What is that? That is not a parent. A parent doesn't compete with his or her child.
Nothing is wrong with looking good.
Absolutely.
But if you have to dress half naked at 40 to look like a 13-year-old,
it suggests something is wrong with you. So you might be suffering from maybe low self-esteem as a parent. So you need to check yourself then as a parent. If you're finding that, or getting jealous at the youthfulness of your child and that kind of thing.
That's a whole other psychological issue.
Yes, then you have to check yourself if you find that you're jealous over your child and so on. But I want to be fair though to some parents. Some parents have had life hard.
Yes.
And maybe they're just beginning to see a little soft life. And you have parents who are recapturing childhood and adolescence, all when they're 40 something and 50 something.
You're talking to one.
who have had life hard, And so I want to be fair, I want to be fair to people. I want to be fair to people, but I want to go back by saying that we have to, as parents, we have to take the job seriously. The job requires a certain serious engagement. And I don't know that I'm seeing that serious engagement, beyond the dressing up of the little dolly or the little king that, you have and you dress him up and so on. He's going to get big. He's going to have his own thoughts and ideas on particular things. And you have to be able to help him and her to navigate life. Sit down and rap with them. Listen to them. You have to listen. You have to be able to say, I'm sorry if you're sorry.
Yes.
Be the man, be the woman and say, I'm sorry. Look, I'm sorry. I got you wrong. I didn't know that was what you were going to do, or I didn't think that was what you were going to say. I'm sorry. I hope that if we have more of that, children will feel more heard and seen and appreciated and understood and valued. And if that happens to you at home, nobody on the road could hoodwink you,
True.
If your father says, come here, Miss Grenada, and if every day your father, or whatever endearing term he calls you, come Miss Grenada, or come here my darling, my sweetie pie, my whatever, and you hear that often, and you know that your father is always there for you. Even if he don't have it, he's always there for you. He will have your back. Or your mother will do the same thing for you. You wouldn't get hoodwinked on the road,
Thank you, Dr. Ricketts, and thank you for viewing Serrana Mitchell Worlds. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I am Serrana Mitchell. Have a good one.